Hey there, this is Beth with my Queen of Wands, and today we are talking about the Singer of Courage. This is Singer number 8. There are 12, if I remember correctly, of them. So we're getting there. 4 more to go after this one. And then we'll move into the she. But the Singer of Courage. Courage is not necessarily great acts of heroism. While it does encompass that, it is not only that. Most acts of courage are small things. They are people moving past their fear. They are people acting in spite of being afraid. And that can be on the most mundane level. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can just, sometimes it's just, if you're maybe asking for help and you're afraid to ask for help for being judged, that is courage. You're afraid to put something out there, and you do. That is courage. You're afraid to try something. That is courage. And that is truly what this singer is about. It's mainly those small acts of heroism that occur on a daily basis. And some are smaller and some are bigger. You know, you can't just say, oh, saving people's lives, now that's heroic. Fighting in a war, that's heroic. Doing this is heroic. It's those small things that are also heroic. And those are mainly where we see this card with the Singer of Courage come into play, is those small things. And I'm not saying it excludes the big things, because it does include them. But in our everyday experience, it's more often the small, mundane, ordinary fears that we've lived with all our lives that we're using this singer to move past. You know, it's like I've heard said that fear is excitement without the breath. And in a lot of ways, that's very true, because notice when you're afraid, where are you breathing from? It's often a very shallow breathing pattern and not a deep one. So if you find yourself breathing shallowly, take some big deep breaths in and let them out and see how that can change your fear. How does that impact how you're feeling, how you're thinking about what you're thinking about doing right now? You know, it's like one of the projects I have going on, and will probably be going on for the rest of my life, is what I call Project Terrifies Me in a Good Way. And that's where I do things that, you know, sometimes it scares the shit out of me. I mean, it's not even like a life or death situation. It just freaks my shit. And I do them. Because at the same time, whether they're that scary, they're also that exciting. So I do them because I grow from those acts of small courage, of putting myself out there and making myself vulnerable in ways that I used to be afraid to do. For whatever reason, whether it was being judged, not being understood, or just scared of it, scared of other people knowing about me, and that I am vulnerable and definitely nowhere near perfect. But it is these ordinary acts of courage that this singer really, really brings in, and becomes a potent change, a very powerful change can start to happen with this card, with the Singer of Courage. And I think too, you know, it's interesting because you have the Singer of Courage, and then the next card is the Singer of Initiation. And by moving through courage, you can step into that initiation card. And I think, you know, so it's very appropriate that courage falls right where it does, because this is the point in this deck where we are gathering up our courage to take the next steps. We've been through all these other singers. We've been through 7 others who have brought us unity and intuition and all sorts of wonderful empowerment. And the Singer of encouragement, it is kind of encouragement, isn't it? The Singer of Courage is asking us really to take that step forward into the next level and not be afraid to go into whatever that is. Yeah, much of the singer is going beyond your own perceived notions of what can be, because a lot can happen that you don't even think is possible sometimes, because that you're like, this is my life, this is how I do it, I have my little box and this is where I live in my box. And it's very easy to live within the box of one's life, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And it's not necessarily always a good thing, because living within the box can sometimes shut you off from ideas that you need that can change how that box looks and maybe expand that box into something bigger. And that's how courage comes in, that you say, okay, here's my boundary, but I'm going to push past that boundary, and I'm going to keep going and keep pushing past boundaries and see what happens. With my death card year in 2014, yeah, this was like a major power player for me. That whole kind of push for it was my boundary, step beyond that boundary. And I mean, and it was literally like this. It wasn't, like huge steps beyond. It was just these little, baby steps for the whole year that allowed me more this year to be more. Those steps were bigger. And there's always going to be points and times where, you're going to need to take a break from courage, maybe. Maybe you need to spend some time getting used to your new box. That's not a bad thing. Letting yourself catch up from change is never a bad thing, because if you're doing a lot of it, you're going to hit a point where you're like, I don't even know what's changed if all you do is keep pursuing the change. And I hit a point this year where I had that, and the courage was to stop going step, step, step. And the courage was kind of like, okay, here's my box. I'm going to explore my box and what's in my current box before I start going do again. And I really had to take some time to stop pursuing change outside of myself and pursue what has been changed inside me, and really taking a look at how all that looks for me now. And too, I felt like it's like there's part of me that was here and part of me was here and somewhere else was here, and I don't have enough hands like to portray where all the parts of me are. So I just took the courage to stop for a while and take a break and drop down into my heart, see where it was, feel what's going on with the solar plexus, see what my new tools are, see where I feel like I need to go next. And that was very powerful. And that also took courage to stop and listen to myself. Because if you don't stop sometimes, then you start imposing the limitation of, yes, I must always be changing. Yes, I always have something that needs to be changed. And I tend to work from the premise that, yes, you are perfect. You may not, as in your current state, there may still be things that you want to work on or change or don't like about yourself, whatever. But you still, at this very second, are the most perfect being you can be at that point in second. So thus you are perfect. It's kind of like you're perfect in your imperfection almost. And I think courage comes into play in saying, yes, I can be perfect while not being perfect, perfectly imperfect. Because perfection too can become a box. How can I be perfect? What can I do to be just better than I already am? And perfection can start to become a limitation, a box that you put yourself on because you're not perfect, so you can't put it out there. So what the hell, why even do it? Nothing will ever be perfect. You'll not be perfect. There are seemingly perfect moments that are perfect in their imperfectness, but they're never exactly just perfect. Does it perfectness? I don't know. Don't care. But remember, perfection too can become a box, especially if it's limiting you putting yourself out there. If you find yourself saying, I can't put this out, it's not good enough, it's not whatever enough, it's not muchy enough, it's not perfect. And it's like this card, I'm modifying a tarot deck. It's nowhere near perfect. screwed up right here. And there's just all sorts of things. So I'm like, yeah, this is not perfect. And that's fine. I really like how this card turned out. I like the modified version of the card, and even though it very much draws on what originally this card had on it, I like this version better. It's not so pastel and gold and blah, but it's not perfect. It's nowhere near perfect, and it never will be. And that's one thing, like art can really drive that home, that you can work as hard as you want on it and it's never going to be perfect, but you to have the courage to say, yes, it's just done. All of a sudden it says done, and you then you take that courage and put it out to the world and say it's done. And you have to do it with your life too. If you find perfection is getting in the way, then you need to look at it as a look at that limitation you are preconceiving and placing upon yourself. Or maybe someone else is doing it, because other people will try and limit you too. And part of courage is being able to gently not live within their limitations. Find your own and live within those and push beyond them. Questions I ask when dealing with this card, it's not like, why me? Or why is this happening to me? When will this end? Why? Stop. Those really aren't the questions you want to ask with this question. Questions I often find myself asking are, what are you really afraid of? What's the worst that's going to happen if you do it? I mean, yes, there are situations where the worst may be bad. It may be really bad. But for the most part, my big question is, so what's the worst thing that'll happen? Will your head explode? And when you ask people, if their head's going to explode, when they do it, most of the time your head is not going to explode. So, it kind of shifts the energy and how they're looking at it, and brings in humor. Can be a really good way to deal with deep layers of fear, I find. It's like, what's the worst thing that happened to me? Is my head going to explode? Okay. No. Am I going to die? No. Will I be financially ruined? No. Okay. Then do it. Then act. Get out there. Do it. Find out how big your box can be. And it's kind of funny because I'm making this after I did the YouTube Pagans Challenge for the broom closet. And it's kind of ironic that I chose to do this video next, because the singer of courage, can also come, into play with that whole broom closet thing. How do you want to live your life? Where do you want your boundaries to be? Yeah, I think that's it for the singer of courage. Push beyond your boundaries. See how far your limitations actually can go. And that is it for the singer of courage today. Bye-bye.